Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second non-interaction live recording. Okay, so this recording is for the section on in Learning Unit 3. The first two themes are of pragmatism and existentialism. So what I'm going to do is I'm really just going to give you a good basic overview of the two. And then for the recording for next week, Thursday, which I'll probably upload today as well, will be on analytical, just an introduction to analytical philosophy. And we're going to unpack those philosophies in more detail at our next live collab on the 13th of April. So then just, briefly, pragmatism. Pragmatism is really John Dewey's baby. This is his kind of philosophy that he's known as the father of pragmatism. He kind of did move on to a more the progressivism philosophy, but he did instigate pragmatism. Pragmatism is really, it's just about well, the word pragmatic means the quality, the way we deal with life, and the quality thereof, and that it's done in a sensible way, and pretty much relevant to the context. So for pragmatists, there's not really absolute truth, because it really is the way you behave and what you see as truth and real is dependent upon the situation and the conditions that you're in. So this fits in really well with realism. The only difference is that it does tend to take, it takes experiences further than the philosophy of realism did. Philosophy of realism really looked at experiences as a form of self-discovery, whereas the pragmatists see the experience of realness, or the experiences, not only for self-discovery, but also how can I use this for future problem solving. So pretty much, we say someone is pragmatic or they're practical, they focus on the here and now, they focus on solutions that are going to work for now, irrespective of what else is happening. So in education, their whole philosophy or focus or aim is that we teach our students to be practical, and to encourage them really to become better people, so that they are able to apply what they are learning to the real world. And I think this fits in really well, maybe with, I don't know, social constructivism, where we are looking at how people are constructing meaning based on what they know, and that we are wanting to educate our students to apply the knowledge that we are teaching them to the real world. And I think specifically, and we were talking about this last week, specifically Generation Z, they're very into that. They don't want these what do we call it? These beautiful PowerPoint presentations with all the bells and whistles. I remember 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was doing a lecture with my second years, Bachelor of Education second years, and I had worked so hard on including so much technology into my presentation. And I, I was waiting for the oohs and the ahs and the well done and gee, this is amazing. But there wasn't any of that. They kind of just took it in their stride. And we were using cell phones and QR codes and polls and, all sorts of, what do you call it, Padlets, where they were responding on their phone and it was appearing on the screen. I thought it was quite wow, but anyway, they did not appreciate. Well, I wouldn't say they didn't appreciate it, but to them it was just, that is just how it is. And so they're very more practical, and they want to know, how do I apply this knowledge to the real world? So that is how the pragmatists also think. Definitely, action gets priority over thought. And as I said earlier, truth and reality are not absolute. They are only your truth, and your reality is only as you are experiencing it within the context that you're in. So for them, a core thing for the pragmatists is the fact that there is change and that there will always be change, and that we change according to our circumstances, the time that we find ourselves in, and the place. So fundamentally, a core part of pragmatism is change. Um, for them, it's your experiences that lead to your man-made ideas, that leads to your values, and what of that is of use to me now. That is my truth. But tomorrow it can change, because tomorrow I have different experiences, I create different values, I have different expectations of for the situation that I am in. So, education for the pragmatist should really be helping the students in this process of creating new standards, and how that relates to the situation that they are in, their reality. How do I create or determine my values in this situation? And then how do I act accordingly? There's no universal truths, bit of utilitarianism here, in that your actions foster happiness, and they choose actions that would foster happiness as opposed to actions that would harm, or that would harm someone or cause unhappiness. The purpose, or the the purpose of pragmatism is that every individual has a social self, and therefore you can only be best developed through your interaction in society. Um, Big thing for the pragmatist philosophy is that they focus on bringing democracy into education, and that it's the students who are determining their goals, based on based on their interests, based on their needs, but it's there's no predetermined standard pathway for students to follow. It is all about um, more sort of a democratic approach. If we look at the aims of the pragmatist philosophy of pragmatism in education, it's very dynamic, looking at helping students to fulfill their biological as well as their social needs, and as I said, enabling them to create their own values, and depending on the situation that they're in. Education really needs to prepare these students for life, according to the pragmatists, making them socially efficient. For them, involved and interacting in society is what is going to develop these students. There's no predetermined goals, as I have mentioned. Focuses on the individual student, focuses on the individual student's aptitudes, their abilities. Focus is definitely more on the student, not so much on the teacher or the textbook, for that matter. Um, Teaching methods should have to be flexible. It's very difficult, if you're a teacher who follows the pragmatic philosophy, you need to really keep in mind the differences amongst your students, differences in learning, differences um, in their abilities, really, and their aptitudes. Um, and you cannot have a fixed method of teaching. There cannot be one, kind of like one way. And obviously, we can't have, we can't go into a lesson with 19 or 20 different teaching methods or learning styles, but we can definitely, within the scope of a term or a semester, try and incorporate different methods of teaching so that we actually help our students to yeah to learn and become people. So that would be from the pragmatic point of view. Their classrooms are very project based. um, Teaching is learning is rather the product of their action, and this brings about creativity. It creates confidence within the learners. They learn about cooperation, they do a bit of inquiry, learning. um, a lot of the classroom also for a pragmatist would be the creating of real life scenarios. So don't give the students the answer and then ask them to kind of give other examples, but rather create the situation, create the scenario, give them the problem, and see how they tackle it, see how they they solve that. So that is how the pragmatic teacher would approach their teaching, their classroom. Not, they're totally against rules, regulations, they're against domination of any one particular method or way. And that, yeah, it's all about really finding out what the child needs are, what their abilities are, and kind of like slotting in with that. A lot of work, as I said. It's not easy if this is your philosophy. I do think it's a worthwhile philosophy to include in your teaching at some points. Another big thing about the pragmatic teacher, they don't believe in rewards and punishment. So you will not find a reward chart, you will not find a consequence punishment kind of like setup. That is of no significance to them. For them, your discipline comes from within because you are doing something that you're enjoying doing. You're doing something that is appealing to your um, um, sorry, I just have to stop this dog. I really apologize. Very unprofessional. I really apologize for that. Okay, so the pragmatist, yeah, as I said, the educator does not believe in punishment and rewards, but rather in that the child's discipline has to come from within and come from within because they are busy with, creating their own truth, creating their values based on what they are doing in the context that they are in. So, yeah, difficult philosophy, I think, but I do think that it is something that, you know, we could look into in our lecture rooms. I think there is place for this. Obviously, when we start looking at the more modern philosophies, we'll see how others have developed from pragmatism and maybe, become a little bit more, if I could use the term, user friendly. But there's definitely a lot of practical truth, I think, for me, in my opinion anyway, in the pragmatic kind of approach to education. Okay, then if we look at the existentialist, oh yes, something I did want to mention about the pragmatic philosophy. I like to, I don't know if you enjoy watching movies that have um, teachers in them. I love it, and um, yeah, whenever there's a movie coming out that is about a teacher that has a school situation in it, yeah, I just can't wait to actually watch it because I try to analyze the teaching style and I try and see kind of what philosophy the teacher is subscribing to, if I can use that. But the one movie that I would say fits in with pragmatism really well. It's not really a movie about teaching, but it's Forrest Gump. And I'm sure you've all seen Forrest Gump. But yeah, his philosophy is very pragmatic. But yeah, at the end, at the end of the semester, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you little short clips of about 8 or 10 movies with teachers in them, and then we're gonna try and analyze them and see if we can just determine what philosophy they are teaching. Right, then existentialism, the father or the main person here is Jean-Paul Sartre. Um, he's the father of existentialism, and the best movie ever that touches on existentialism or features existentialism is The Truman Show. So those of you who haven't seen that, I'm sure you all have, but brilliant, brilliant, brilliant movie. Okay, so the existentialist or the philosophical belief of existentialism really just examines the existence and the role of people um, in terms of their feelings, their thoughts, their responsibilities. So the existentialist will focus on the lived experience and on the the self-discovery, etc. But for them, it is total focus, intense focus on the describing and the interpreting of that lived experience. Um, the they're very humanistic, and they have a lot of insight into human freedom, human responsibility. Their big, if I could say, slogan is that we exist first and then we develop essence. So our meaning in life comes from what we do and what we experience. So for them, we are continually in transition. As soon as we think that we understand ourselves and that we have arrived, it's time to move on. So time to examine everything all over again and maybe reflect and maybe transition or transform into something else. For them, education is should yeah, okay, so yeah, I'm going to use the word emphasize, but it should emphasize or focus on the individuality of the learners. Not only like with the pragmatists, where they look at the way that the needs and the aptitudes and the abilities of the learner, but for the existentialists, they like to look at emotions. So they like to emphasize, not emphasize, but look at fears and the frustration and hope of their learners, and really just try and understand experiences and interpret their meaning. In the existentialist classroom, the teacher does not fulfill um, sort of like a box role. It's not, the teacher is not there to impart knowledge to the student at all. There is no focus on the measuring of how much knowledge the student has internalized, but it's more about the uniqueness of the student, and to, as an educator, take a positive role as an example to the student, or in shaping their own education, their own creating the meaning of their lives. They don't believe in, or the existentialists will not, you won't catch them manipulating students along sort of like predetermined goals or predetermined pathways, or this is kind of the outcome we want. It's more looking at the unique qualities of each learner, and looking at how best to harness that learner's potential to become what they can become. What else do I want to say about existentialism? There's a lot of focus on helping the students to get to know themselves so that they can make better choices. The big thing about the existentialist is because it's about making meaning out of your experiences. There's a lot of focus on being authentic, and developing, so that for them, educating students to make better choices, and then to be authentic about carrying out those choices. And with that is accepting the consequences of the choices. So for them, it's very important for the student to understand, okay, so these are your choices. I'm educating you as to which is the best one. It is still your responsibility to make a choice. But whatever choice you do make it authentic. Stick to it, commit to it, but then also accept the responsibility and the consequence that comes with that. So the teacher, the existentialist teacher, is actively involved with the learners, and in actual fact, the existential teacher will actually welcome challenges. They don't shy away from students who challenge them, who want to question what they're saying and what they're doing, because for them it's about developing the student's ability to analyze things, to critically think about things, and to question the purpose of their own existence. That is the big thing about the existentialists. Um, for them, there is really no meaning outside of your own experience. And so basically, we are free to determine our own meaning. The two big questions that the existentialists focus on or use as their what could I say, the core of their belief is not belief, but the core of their action or behavior is really who am I? So you would hear the existentialist teacher would often say to a child, so who are you? It's not so much about what the knowledge is, but who are you? Who are you as a lecturer? Who are you as a teacher? Who are you as a student? And the other question is, what should I be doing? Um, and sometimes that is really very grounding and very takes the busyness and the stress away, and just to stand still and say, what should I be doing? I often use that when I just feel things get a bit too crazy, and then it really just helps you to filter out the fuzz and the things that you don't really need to really worry about. But for them, those are the questions: who am I? What should I be doing? And whatever the answer is to just ascribe to it authentically, and not kind of be wishy-washy about it. There's not much focus, well, probably no focus on scientific experiments. It's all about the choices we make based on what we have and the and then to accept the consequences. Um, Teachers would also help their learners in the existentialist classroom to view the opinions and thoughts of others, and then to use that in order to make a different decision, or a better decision, or an informed decision um, about knowledge. Um, Again, there's no standardization with existentialism. As with pragmatism, it's very focused on guided learning. So the teacher is on the sidelines and not in the front of the class. Guiding the learners. So that is pretty much pragmatism and existentialism in a very small nutshell. There is a whole lot more that I could say, but I really don't. I don't want to bore you completely, and you can also read and go and have a look at some things. But what we will do at our next collab, our next live collab, is we can maybe revisit some of these points, and just maybe look at how they are practically applied in a classroom. But that is all from me with regards to pragmatism, existentialism, and I'm going to be uploading the intro to authentic philosophy as well. And then just quickly again about your ICE task that is due. Remember, it's really just a short discussion based on those 6 points, choosing a paragraph, short discussion, analyzing it based on those 6 questions or 6 points. I really do not expect extensive long essays, and this is just the first one, so yeah, not too not yeah you don't have to go into too much detail. I actually, what I like with the first ICE really is just to get a kind of an understanding of your writing style and the way you express yourself, and that's kind of really all I'm interested in at this stage. But great, thank you so much. I do apologize again for my dog interrupting us there twice. One of the recording live collabs 101 rules: do not have any sounds in your house that could affect the recording. But yeah, unfortunately, I do not have control over the barking of my dog, so I apologize for that. Okay, have a great evening further, or day, or whenever you listen to this recording, and I will chat to you again.